So there's this huge trend right now that I don't really know who started it, but it's thumb button style releases for hunting. And I've played around with every single type of release possible known to man. Hinge thumb buttons, people call them back tensions. Back tension is the technique to get the release to fire, but it's not the actual release. And it's crazy that these thumb button releases have caught on almost as if they are a trend. And I think that a lot of people can be destined for failure down the road if they're not firing these things properly. You know, you see videos of people shooting and they're at full draw like this, and they slide their thumb on and they just, I mean, really, or it doesn't even move. It just sits there. And I just can feel the tension when they shoot their release like that, and that can develop target panic down the road. So I think if you're shooting fine with an index finger, it's much simpler operation. You can't lose it. It's on your wrist. You know, stick with that. Don't overcomplicate things unless you're having problems with how you're shooting. That's when I would jump to a thumb button release over time, or into a hinge style release, which I think is even better, even for hunting situations personally. But you know, there's other avenues to go. If you're having trouble and you want to shoot better, I don't necessarily think a thumb button is the way to go automatically. I think that a lot of people are seeing hunters on television, they're seeing more target archers on social media, they're seeing more people pushing these products. That's fine, because we want the archery industry to increase and maintain and be a blooming business, a blooming industry. But you also don't want to be spending money that you don't need to spend, in my opinion. And I think that a lot of people are buying these thumb button releases. I don't know why. I really don't know why, because you're not shooting it correctly. You're destined to have target panic issues in the future, and it costs 4 or 5 times the amount of a wrist strap release, and you're only shooting 20 yards. You know, the thing with the thumb button releases is, if it's not being shot properly, all these muscles, everything, all the way up into your shoulder, when you're under a high pressure situation, can become very tense, to the point of locking up, to the point of no return. And it's much easier to have a wrist strap release, wrist strap release, and not have all hands on the wheel, and just use that one index finger to focus on. When you get back to full draw and it's cold out and you're gripping on that handheld release, which, like I said, I've killed tons of deer with, and I'll go into what I'm shooting right now, but it can be very, like I said, if you're not shooting it the right way, it can cause, under high pressure situations, you to basically miss, to punch the trigger, or to not get that execution that you want. And that's, you know, it's not a good thing, because we hunt all year and we wait all year for that perfect shot, and we want to be ready for it. You know, I've shot and I've hunted with a thumb button release. I'm a guy who's had and been through the whole target panic thing, to the point where I wanted to get on Archery Talk and sell my bow and be done with archery, but I kept going. And then I found a hinge style release called the Scott Hex. True Fire has one. I'm not sponsored by any of these people. There's other companies that have those types of releases, where it's a combination of it has a sear on it that gives you what I call, it buys you time. So when I'm at full draw, I have to put pressure to a point, pressure goes off, to the point where the release goes off. And during that time, I can check my boxes. Okay, everything's good to go. We're ready for takeoff. Instead, I'm at full draw, deer is on the pins on the deer, and I just hit that thing as hard as I can. Not as much with this, but I feel with this, you know, people set them really light. They're cold, their hands cold, and I think it can lead to a lot of problems if it's not being shot properly and if you're not, hunting with it at all times, as I said before, we need to get back to the if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. Right now we are at the more mentality, and there's only so high you can go up where you're chasing that one thing, but the bottom falls out. So I remember I was chasing to be more accurate so much that I developed this target panic. And once I stopped and realized that I'm accurate, plenty accurate out to 70 yards, if I had to shoot a bigger animal like an elk, I could do so. 100 yards, I can hit it. I can hit the Reinhardt. I'm not the best shot. Once I stopped chasing to be better, that's when the real, it's hard to describe, because you want to be better, but you don't want to be, you want to be satisfied with progress, not dissatisfied with progress. And so I was dissatisfied because I didn't feel like I was getting better at shooting fast enough or good enough and that kind of thing. So just be careful before you start buying products that you might not necessarily need. Is what you have working? How long has it been working? How many times have you been successful versus failures? I mean, if you're using a broadhead that opens up 50% of the time, well, I should probably switch my broadheads. If these arrows aren't passing through deer because they're too light, I'm only getting a halfway pass, I need to get heavier arrows. I need to increase my poundage and work my way up. But don't just buy new things because that's what everybody else is doing because you think it's going to make you a better shot. There's a technique to be shooting, to shoot a thumb button release properly, and I hope you spend the time to do it. And if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. If I need to make a video on how to shoot a thumb button release properly or a hinge release properly, I will do so. But don't go chasing that thing. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and lakes that you're used to. You're shooting a deer at 20 yards.